Daf Lamed Amud Aleph, right at the top of the Yomid. Continuing on with the discussion about a taruvis of chametz. Rava said, Hilchasa, what's the halacha? Chametz bismanai, chametz if it's on Pesach, bein b'minai, bein shaloi b'minai, whether the mixture is with its own kind or with a different kind, also b'mashu. It's also b'mashu. Kira, because he holds like Rab, that min b'minai is also, he holds also even b'mashu, and Rav is geyser that eino mina otaminu. So that's why bein b'minai shem b'loy bein b'minai it's also even with a mash. Should loy b'zmanai if it's after Pesach, bein b'minai bein shaloi b'minai muter, it's muter k'Rav Shimon, because he holds like Rav Shimon that therefore there's no Isser D'Oraisa of Chometz Sharol Pesach, and therefore it muter even if it gives flavor. Frag the Gemara, Miyamar Rav Hachi, did Rava say this? Omar Rava, Rabbi Shimon, can say is that even though Rabbi Shimon says that there's no Isser D'Oraisa of Chometz Sharol Pesach, but there is an Isser D'Rabbanan, there's a Kanas. Since it was left over and the Yid was Oiver Baliroi Bamatzah, it's a Kanas Midrabanan. So therefore, why should we say that the Taruvas should be mutter? Why shouldn't it be, if it gives flavor, why shouldn't it be also Midrabanan? The Gemara answers, Hani Milabain, that's only if it's banned. If it's there in its own form. It's in its pure form. But in a mixture, he didn't say this. There would not be geyser. There would be no Israel. The Kanas is only banned, but not in a mixture. And Rava goes according to his Tam, Doma Rava, Kiavina Be Rav Nachman, Kiavanavke, Shivya the Pischa, Omerlan, Puku, Zuna, Chamira, Dvei Chela. He says that after Pesach, when the Pesach was over, he said you can go and buy the chametz of the soldiers which are nachim, that is mutter. So we see over here that he paskins like Rav Shimon, that he paskins like Rav Shimon, because he said that after Pesach you can buy the chametz of the soldiers. That even though it was baked on Pesach. It was right after Pesach that he said you could buy it, so it was baked on Pesach, and therefore it must be that he holds, like Rav Shimon, that there's no Isser D'Oraisa of Chometz Shalom Pesach, and therefore there's no Isser of the Chometz of a Nochri. There's an Isser D'Rabbanan, there's a Knas of a Chometz of a Yid, Hoyel over Lava B'Yir by Maseh, but the Chometz of a Nochri is muter. The Rishonim bother by, but how is it mutter to buy the bread? And regardless, even during the year, it's the bread of an akum, and it's pas akum. So why should it be mutter? So Rabbeinu Dovid says is that what he means to say is that he didn't tell him to buy the bread, but rather the dough. And it was the dough, and therefore they baked it. It wasn't a pas akum. Or he says that it was baked by the Yid before Pesach, and so the baker was the Yid before Pesach. It was baked by a Yid. It was in the Nochri's possession on Pesach, and they can buy it right after Pesach. What we see from over here is that Rava says the halacha is that chametz on Pesach is bein b'minai, bein shaloi b'minai, that it is awesome. So Rashi says we can conclude from here that the halacha is that min b'minai is also b'mashu, because chametz on Pesach is min b'minai, that it's also or geyser eina mina otamina. So that would seem to indicate that the halacha is like Yehuda, that min b'minai, that it's not bottle, it's also even b'mashu, and therefore we could extrapolate to other isurim, then also say that if you have a taruvis of macholas asuris, if it's min b'minai, that it should not be bottle, it should be also b'mashu, and that's what Rashi holds. The Ran says not that way. He says it's either because of the chumrah of chametz on Pesach that we pass in that way, or because it's considered a davar sheyesh lo matirin, and the rule is a davar sheyesh lo matirin mafil be'elf lo batal. But lagabe other isurim, we would say apply the principle of bittul, and we would say that it's batal, that there's a bittul of batal b'shishim, that we would say that it is batal b'shishim. If there are pots made out of earthenware, if they were used for chametz before Pesach, if they were used for Pesach for chametz, then they have to be broken. You have to break the pots before Pesach. Now, the earthenware pots, they don't remove. You can't kasher them completely. They absorb the taste. They absorb the flavor of the chametz. If they were used for chametz before Pesach, they absorb the flavor of the chametz. They have blias of the chametz, which remain within the walls of the earthenware pot. So therefore, you always have that tam over there of the chametz. Therefore, Rav says that they have to be broken before Pesach. Why is that so? Why do they have to be broken? Keep them till after Pesach, and then use them with something else, with a different type, with a food of a different type, and it will become bottle. Now, Rav is maida that after Pesach, even though he says during Pesach, on Pesach, that it's also b'mashahu, that the tam of the chametz will also b'mashahu bein b'mina, bein shaloi b'mina. But after Pesach, he's maida that after Pesach, it'll be mutter. Its mutter becomes bottle b'sheino minai. So therefore, why can't you use it after Pesach, and therefore use it with something with chametz that is, or use it with a min rather, with something which is eino minai, which is a different kind, and it'll become bottle, and you can use it. Gemara answers that gzera dilmos lemevet b'mina. It's a gzera that you might come to use it with its same kind, with the same min, and b'min b'minai after Pesach, then it's not bottle. So we're geyser. So part and parcel of what we are saying over here is that according to Rav, that the number one is, as the Ritva points out, that yes, it's possible to use it with foods that are cold, and then there's no blias at all. But in general terms, he's geyser, you might use it with food which is hot. Meaning, technically, if there's absorbent in the walls of the earthenware, you use it in something which is cold, as long as the surface is clean, there shouldn't be a problem. But we're geyser, part of this gzer of the isser of Rav is, we're geyser, you might use it with hot food. That's number one. Number two is that Rav is of the opinion that even though it's stale, even though this is remaining till after Pesach, even though it remains after Pesach, and the tam is a tam of gam, that's stale, nevertheless, we still would be also, else tam kicker would still apply. And also, Rav holds that chametz lachar Pesach is also bahano. And Rashi points out that we do not hold like a Rav on all of these points, both of these points. We don't hold like Rav. We hold tam pogam nishal tam bakam is mutter, and we hold also that the chametz lachar Pesach we hold like Rav Shimon. So therefore, however, Rav said that you have to break the pots. You have to break the pots, and you can't leave it over till afterwards, even though technically you could use it with a pot which is and use it with foods which are eino minai, and it would become bottle. Nevertheless, regardless, you might use it with minai. Why would it become bottle? How do you know that it will become bottle? Because Rashi says, because there's only a small amount that is absorbed. How do we know that there's only a small amount that is absorbed? Taisa says, because they're talking about a kli that you use it with small bits of chametz. The chametz that's used in it is used small bits at a time. And therefore, there is not a large amount of chametz in the kli. The Ramban says we're talking, even according to this, that we're talking where he would have kashered it prior. What the Gemara means to say is kasher it first and then use the she'eino mina, because once you kashered it, now even though earthenware you can't kasher completely, but it will only render the amount of chametz in the earthenware clear to a small degree. There will only be a small amount of the chametz left, and therefore that small amount would be theoretically bottled in eino minoi, but it's a gzera atu minoi. The Asakasha, the Rishonim Asakasha, we have a klal, ein mevatel isur l'charchila. You can't be mevatel isur l'charchila, so why is this an eitzah? L'charchila, you can't be mevatel the isur, so why should we say be mevatel the chometz with eino minoi? The Tosfos Rosh says that, the Tosfos Rashba rather says that since the alternative it is to break the kli, this is called that, not l'charchila, this is called b'di'evet, and therefore, if not for the gzeira, we would allow it. However, Rav is geyser. That's the sheet of Rav. Right to the Gemara, Shmuel Amar, Shmuel says, Lo yishavru. He says, no, you don't have to break it. Aval mashilu lachar zmana. You keep it. You don't use it on Pesach. You put it away. You keep it until after Pesach. V'avebu bein b'mina, bein shalai b'mina. And then you can use it, whether it's a mina, whether it's ain't a mina, you can use it. It's mutter to use it. Shmuel goes according to his opinion. He said to the people who sell new pots after Pesach, make your price, give it a set of a fair price. Make sure that your price is a fair market price. And if you don't, I'll darshan like Rav Shimon, and then people can use their old pots, and they don't have to buy your new pots. So if you're going to raise the prices, you're not going to charge a fair price. I'm going to publicly tell them that the law is like Rav Shimon, and that people therefore can use their pots, old pots, and not use them after Pesach, because you hold like Rav Shimon that there would be no iser to use the pots, because after Pesach, chametz is mutar anom midaraisa. And there will be no gzera on the tam that's in the pots. Frag the Gemara of a lidrishlahu. Well, why doesn't he darshan it? Why doesn't he tell them that's the case? Why, in any event, why doesn't he tell them? Why should they have to buy new pots, even if it's a fair market price? Why should they have to buy new pots? The Hashmul Rav Shimon's fairly. He holds like Rav Shimon. Our answer is Asid the Rav Hava. It was the area where Rav was the Mardas, so he didn't want to go publicly against the halacha, the sheet of Rav. And Rav held, it was also, Rav held you have to break the pots. But if they were going to raise the price, he threatened them that he will tell them that it's mutter, because the law is like Rav Shimon. There was an oven that was coated with the fat from the tail of an animal, meaning, and therefore it was flesh. Asra Rava bar Hailoi lemechla l'rifta. He said the bread that was baked in that oven, it's also, because now that bread is fleshy. And he said it's also, he answered, I feel milcha, even to eat it with salt. Not only, certainly not to eat it with milk eggs, but even with salt. Why is that? Because they might come to eat it with kusach, which has milk in it. And he was geyser that they won't realize it's fleshig, and they'll eat it with milk eggs. And therefore he said the bread is awesome. You can't knead dough with milk. And if you did, the bread is awesome. Because hergel people might not realize, and they'll eat it with meat. In a similar vein, you can't coat the oven with the fat of the tail of the sheep, because it's fleshig. But if he did, then whatever bread is baked in that oven is asura until he fires up the oven, and therefore he kashers it, and then the oven is mutar. But after that, it's mutar. It's a fractic gemara. But in any event, but if he did, it's mutar. And the bread that's baked after that is mutar, because the oven has been kasher. Tiyufta Rava bar Eloi, tiyufta. It's a kasher, it's a tiyufta, the Rava bar Eloi. he said that the bread that's baked in that oven is always also, even after it was husak, it's also. You see over here that no, it's only if he put the grease on the oven and he coated it, then he coated it after the oven was fired up. Then he coated it, and the after it was fired up, the fire died down. Then he coated it. Then the bread that was baked over there becomes also. But if it was he coated the oven, and then he put a fire over there, he fired it up, that kashers the oven. And then after that, bread that's baked over there is mutter. So it's a tiyufta, the Rama Bar Eloi.